What's something you saw as a kid that looked harmless but if you witnessed it now it would horrify you? When I was a kid I remember riding around on the back of this ATV in this sort of homemade buggy/trailer. Our school was volunteering to set things up for a marathon if I recall correctly. Anyways, I remember watching some of the older guys jump off while the ATV was still moving, and being young wanting to emulate them I tried doing it. I remember catching my foot on this rock, falling, rolling, and people screaming. I got up embarrassed and just sort of shook it off. Didn't understand why the older people were shaken. Didn't remotely grasp the fact that the rubber of the wheel was touching my face, about to use my head as a speed bump. Looking back, that driver had some incredible reflexes. Super thankful for that. I've always loved the tranquil feeling of being underwater. When I was a kid I would just hold my breath and float around. Sometimes adults would think I was drowning and run up and scoop me out. I don't remember this, it was when I was pretty young, but my parents have told me about it. I used to think it was a funny story. People thinking I was drowning when I was just trying to relax, until I watched a video explaining child drownings, and yeah, the way I acted in water looked exactly like a drowned kid. I don't think it's funny anymore. Floodwater. It was fun and games for the kids, and we even splashed around in it, much to the horror of our parents, who immediately scrubbed us down. We didn't understand then, but now, oh wow, sewer, insects, rats, parasites, etc. My friend and I were walking along the road in about thigh-high floodwaters. A small boat with 2 men comes up to us. We were about 9 years old and I think they were National Guard. Anyway, one of the men asks if we remembered exactly where the manholes in the road were. We answered no. He told us that all of the covers had most likely been washed away in the flood, but not to worry because it would probably only take them a few days to find our bodies if we were sucked down one of the holes by currents they produced. He spoke in a matter-of-fact tone and then left. As an adult, I have zero doubt those 2 men had a good laugh as they looked back and watched us nope out of that water like 2 roadrunners in a cartoon. Edit, it was fish and game wardens. The NG didn't come until later. It might take a few days to find your bodies, but the important thing is that we will find your bodies. So you can rest easy in the knowledge that your mothers won't have to bury an empty casket. Your body might be horribly bloated, but by God it will be in that casket. Have a good day, kids. I have a childhood memory of my dad acting weird, stumbling and falling around the house and saying bizarre things that didn't make any sense. I thought it was effing hilarious as a kid, that he was being goofy and silly. I now know he was high as balls on Percocet. This hits home. I remember back in high school we used to laugh at my father while he stumbled and slurred words at night, from drinking. Held a good job and didn't have any issues on a day-to-day basis. He was a highly functioning alcoholic. 20 years later, he's in his 60s and he's still an alcoholic but no longer highly functioning. His body can't handle the alcohol anymore. He's just began a road to recovery but hasn't been doing well with it. It's rough. Had a jogger get hit by a car outside my house once when I was about 8 or 9. My nephew came running inside yelling at my parents and my sister to call the ambulance because he was bleeding pretty badly. I could even see him from our playroom's window and I wondered what he was doing lying on the grass. Turns out he was bleeding out pretty badly, deliriously yelling at my parents when they tried to help. Eventually, an ambulance came and picked him up, but my parents always told me he made it out okay. The day after, in the spot he was found, someone had put a lily in the grass in a vase. It took me longer than I care to admit to figure out he died from the hit and run. I grew up in a tiny country town. When I was about 7 I walked out of our front door one day and spotted a friend of mine who just came out of the small grocery store across the road. As soon as he saw me, he ran across the road towards me and straight into the path of a car. The scene after the accident was horrific. There was blood and spilt milk everywhere over the road. My friend survived, barely. He spent months in the hospital and when he did come out, the poor guy had to wear a helmet all day. I didn't realize this for a long time, but the accident obviously caused some brain damage too. His whole personality and temper changed. He became very quick-tempered and constantly out to antagonize everyone. That meant that very quickly no one wanted to hang out with him anymore. Having no friends just made him angrier too. He was constantly fighting with everyone, Whether that's other kids in school, teachers, and random adults. Of course, that was only verbal sparring. Everyone knew that his head injuries meant that he was basically untouchable. It was drilled into us that even just a light knock on the head could kill him. There's no happy end. I sort of lost contact with him. Because he missed so much of the school year when he was in hospital, he had to repeat the year and wasn't in my class anymore. The last I heard was that he died about 10 or so years after the accident. Brain injuries are horrific. My sister is like that. She had a pretty rare disease and survived, but it basically reset her mentally. She spent time in the hospital to relearn English words and then blew expectations on how long till she could go home. After she got home, her temper was crazy. It didn't help that everyone knew her before and her memories are foggy, making it difficult for her to keep up friendships. Luckily, she still has 2 best friends who are as close as family. She still has seizures occasionally and she gained weight from steroids used in her treatment, but overall she recovered very well. A kid effing sharpened his fingers with an automatic pencil sharpener at grade 2. Everyone didn't know what was going on until the teacher started freaking out. I just remembered I tried to stick my finger into electric pencil sharpeners as a kid and disliked how my fingers were too big to fit in it. What the hell was I thinking? How sharp did he get it? Haha, not very sharp. He got caught red-handed before his finger turned into a pencil. Still, it was a mess and blood was everywhere. When I was in high school, I got off the bus behind a kid I had known since middle school. We were walking to go inside when he just suddenly collapsed in front of me, smacked right into the pavement and started seizing. I knew something was wrong, but I thought he would end up being okay. He died in the hospital the next day because of bleeding in his brain. I knew when it happened that it was really effed up that I saw that, but I never realized how disturbing it is until I got older. Now it really makes me upset. I have memories of him from middle school and he was just such a sweet and kind kid. He died freshman year and they had a moment of silence for him at our graduation. It was very sad. When I was around 5 years old, I was in the mall with my mom and her boyfriend. We were in a Radio Shack store and I was sitting at a computer checking it out. An older man walked up to the computer next to me to look at it, and next thing I knew he collapsed and landed on top of me across my lap. My mother's boyfriend ran over because he thought he was being weird or something, but apparently he had a heart attack and died. I remember them pulling him off me and the paramedics showing up and us leaving. My grandma would save time by blow-drying my hair when I was still in the bath. WTF was she NASCAR pit crew? This comment has me in tears. Oops. The hairdryer just nearly slipped out of my hand. Depends on the year. If you had a GFCI outlet, then you would have lived. Hopefully. When I was in 6th grade, a girl showed up to school with a Tinkerbell tattoo on her hip. In our child brains, we found this very mature and grown up that her parents had let a family member tattoo her. Looking back at it now, it's concerning that anyone would sign off on a tattoo for a 10/11-year-old. Same thing happened at my school. In 6th grade, a girl came to school and while changing for gym, she showed off a big tattoo that said "Daddy's Little Girl" on her barely developed breast. She turned out okay, but you can still see the tattoo in pictures she posted on Facebook, and I cringed just thinking about it. That's more concerning than the original post. Seriously. Firstly, some parent/guardian would have to okay it, then a tattoo artist would have to be down with it. Effin' weird all around. We used to jump off our roof. First time hurt a little, but after a few times you learned how to land. Did it regularly and would try various items as parachutes to see if it slows you down any. I look at that height now and wonder how the hell we never broke anything. Kids' bones are more elastic, I guess. My mom did this as a kid. She was always getting into stuff she shouldn't have been, so ended up hurting herself quite badly a few times and trying to hide it. She was jumping off the roof with her cousins and using a towel as a parachute. Unfortunately, she got a little too close to the building and a nail end sticking out got her on the way down. I'm not sure how far into herself she ripped, in the bum from memory, but this was in a time when you didn't go to the hospital for anything. Rural America, people who had grown up in the Depression with no jobs or affordable health care. Watching my kindergarten teacher die of cancer. He just kept getting skinnier and paler and more exhausted, and eventually he just didn't show up anymore, and that was that. Didn't understand it then, obviously. In second grade, I remember having a teacher that was pregnant, like really pregnant, and one day she showed up not pregnant and she seemed to be acting oddly. She miscarried twins on a Friday and showed up for class on Monday. Now that's being committed to your job. Later that year, husband wrapped his truck around a light pole, crap-faced drunk. She still showed up for class. One time in high school, my phys ed/health teacher had a miscarriage. She was back in teaching pretty soon after, though, and even addressed it in our next health class, calmly explaining exactly what had happened to help us better understand the reproductive biology of a woman and complications that can arise during pregnancy. That was a great way to process her grief. Oh crap. Poor lady. Holy crap, that's so sad and horrifying. In my childhood, my neighbor often hired us to help around the garden. When I turned 10, he asked me to come up and help pick the green beans. I went up in some red shorts. While I worked at picking the beans, I happened to glance back at him. I saw this weird jerking motion in his pants. Since I grew up in rural Tennessee in the 70s, I had absolutely no idea what was taking place. I just turned away and continued picking beans. Picking green beans requires a lot of bending over, and I wore very short red shorts. You can figure out what took place, I don't need to spell it out. Edit, I'm a 58-year-old male. At what age did you realize what happened and what did you do about it? I was 10. You have to understand the culture. Rural Tennessee in the 1970s really was like the Andy Griffith Show. It was a wonderful childhood. At the age of 10, I didn't know what sex was, much less masturbation. So I didn't associate the experience with trauma, I just thought it looked weird. As a result of this, I didn't tell anyone at all. I didn't even connect the dots until years later. Crap. Getting chased by a hippo while in a small motorboat. I was only like 8 at the time, but I thought it was very fun. Meanwhile, my parents were basically crapping their pants. Edit, wow, this got more attention than I thought, lol. The context was my family hired a guy with a boat to bring us around the Okavango Delta. Calling him a guide would be generous, he was just a guy with a boat, and we got a bit too close to a lone male hippo. Chaos ensued. Hippos are utterly terrifying, I would have died of fright. Yeah, it was pretty close to us, and for a while was keeping up with the motorboat. They are scary-ass animals. My mom holding what I thought to be sugar cubes and was mad because she didn't give me any after returning to the car with them at an unknown sketchy trailer where she left me in the car alone for seemed like an hour. I had no sense of time as a child. It was drugs. I was wondering who else has drug memories that only made sense later. I can honestly say my children have probably only seen someone smoking crack out a light bulb, tying off, or cooking on a spoon and lighter a few/no times in their short lives. I saw one of those probably every day and thought nothing of it. It never even registered it as unusual or worthy of note. Early 90s NYC was something else. I hope you, and your family, are well and safe today. That's a very scary memory for a little child to have. I used to think my parents just rolled their own cigarettes instead of buying from the store. Maybe it was cheaper? I don't know, I'm 10, what do I care? Then in high school, I was offered weed at a party, and thought, this smells like mom and dad's bedroom. Oh. My town swim instructor would always make fun of the boys, anywhere from ages 6 to 13 or so, for wanting to change in the stalls, and not out in the main changing room area where he was with his clipboard. He was eventually arrested when a computer tech found child porn on his laptop when he took it in for some repairs, and thanks to the trial we learned that he was filming us with a little camera attached to his clipboard. Also, that he had been molesting a disabled boy that was in his care. What the F? We need a grandma with a baseball bat. This reminds me that my Scouts leader at age 6 to 10 always insisted on basically seeing us naked when showering. We often were on campsites where you needed to put a coin in the shower for hot water, and she would only give us the coin once we were fully undressed because we would lose it otherwise. She also made fun of and forbade a girl wanting to shower in her bikini in group showers. Her reasoning was that it would be wet and maybe she'd need it the next day and then catch a cold. When the girl said she had a second bikini though, that didn't change a thing. We also were forced to shower naked together in groups of 4 a couple of times because we would waste water otherwise. I knew it was bullcrap back then and it made me really uncomfortable. I tried to reason with her and call her out, but she never backed down. Still, I just now realized exactly how effed up that was. I don't necessarily think she was a pedophile, but disregarding children's bodily autonomy like that and giving a F about their consent certainly is abusive enough. Edit. Many people are saying she's definitely a pedophile, and of course I can't know, but I already said it in another response. I think people forget that the majority of sexual abuse towards children is not related to pedophilia at all. Children are just an easy target for people to live their power trips and control fantasies. Her behavior was predatory and abusive, but I'm quite sure it was power play and not because she was attracted to us. She wanted to be in control and have us know that she was. What a sicko. It was when my nanny and I role-played to be in a relationship, laughing my butt off, an abusive relationship, mind you. I was 8 at that time. She'd kiss me on the lips and I'd sit on her lap, and it's really creeping me out now that I think about it. I also got molested by my babysitter and didn't realize that that was what it was until I was a legal adult. That's some unresolved trauma that I don't want to deal with. Edit. Holy crap, thank you for all the support. I'm sorry so many people had similar stories. Same. I actually never realized what was being done to me. Groping disguised as hugs, kisses on the lips, what seemed as normal comments turned out to be double meaning, etc. Until a few months ago when my mom asked me about the babysitter. She knew nothing. I was about 8 years old and I walked into a public bathroom and I saw 2 people holding small spoons slumped in the corner. I remember telling my mother afterwards and she told me they were tired after eating birthday cake. Edit. Thanks for the gold. My dad had to eventually tell me the truth about heroin because I wouldn't shut up and was horrified that people would be eating cake on the dirty bathroom floor. That made me laugh, but it's not funny. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to be the first to know about Red Rabbit Reader's new videos. If you like our videos, please like them on YouTube and share them with your friends. We welcome your comments below. Press to start another of our videos.